Ever wondered who really pulled the strings in medieval kingdoms? Did powerful women secretly shape the course of history, while men took all the credit? Number 9. Royal marriages as political chess moves. Did you know that medieval princesses were some of the most important diplomats of their time? These young women, often barely teenagers, were sent to foreign courts to secure peace treaties and military alliances through marriage. Take Eleanor of Castile, who at just 13 years old was married to the future King Edward I of England in 1254 to secure an alliance between England and Spain. These weren't just weddings. They were international treaties sealed with vows instead of signatures. Princess marriages created complex webs of family connections across Europe. The chess-like strategy behind these unions meant that a single well-connected queen could prevent wars or create them with a single letter to her relatives abroad. When Isabella of France married Edward II of England in 1308, she brought not just French connections but also ties to powerful families across Europe. When her marriage soured, those same connections became weapons in her political arsenal. Women like Margaret of Anjou, who married England's Henry VI, arrived in their new countries with entire entourages, ladies-in-waiting, priests and advisors who brought foreign influence directly into the heart of the court. These queens maintained correspondence, networks spanning countries and decades, sharing information, negotiating on behalf of their birth families, and maintaining crucial diplomatic relationships even when official channels broke down. Some royal brides transformed their adopted kingdom. When Byzantine Princess Theophano married Holy Roman Emperor Otto II in 972, she introduced Byzantine court customs, art, and political strategies to Western Europe, significantly influencing the development of German court culture. These women didn't just adapt to their new homes, they reshaped them. Number 8. Women as behind-the-scenes political elfers. Ever heard of Matilda of Flanders? While her husband, William the Conqueror, was busy conquering England, she was effectively running Normandy as his regent. Medieval queens and noblewomen frequently served as trusted confidants and political strategists for their husbands, offering advice that shaped kingdoms while receiving little official recognition. In the shadows of castle chambers and royal bedrooms, women wielded tremendous influence through whispered counsel. Eleanor of Aquitaine advised both of her royal husbands, first Louis VII of France, then Henry II of England, on matters of state before eventually ruling parts of England herself during her son Richard's absence during the Crusades. Her political acumen was so respected that even when imprisoned by her husband for supporting their son's rebellion, her advice was still sought on diplomatic matters. The intimate access wives had to their husbands created unique opportunities for political influence. Unlike male advisors who might only see the king during formal councils, queens shared private moments when guards were dismissed and crowns set aside. Philippa of Hainault, wife of Edward III of England, used these private moments to intercede in political decisions, most famously persuading her husband to spare the lives of the burghers of Calais who had surrendered to him during the 100 Years' War. Many medieval women maintained extensive correspondence with influential figures, creating unofficial diplomatic channels that operated alongside formal male-dominated ones. Their letters, thousands of which survive today, reveal sophisticated political strategies and negotiations conducted entirely by women. Isabella d'Este, Marchioness of Mantua, maintained such an extensive network of correspondence that she received news faster than many rulers, allowing her to advise her husband with uniquely current information. Number 7. Abbey founders and religious patron. Did you realize that by founding religious institutions, medieval women could create centers of power completely under female control? When noble women established abbeys and convents, they weren't just being pious. They were creating independent power bases where women could develop intellectual and administrative skills outside male oversight. Abbesses of major religious houses controlled vast estates, collected taxes, administered justice, and even minted their own coins. The abbess of Fontefraud in France oversaw an order that included both men and women, with male monks answering to female leadership, a revolutionary concept in medieval society. These powerful religious women commanded respect even from kings. When Hildegard of Bingen, abbess and mystic, criticized Emperor Frederick Barbarossa for his policies, he responded not with punishment, but with continued support for her abbey. Women like Blanche of Castile, mother of King Louis IX of France, used religious patronage to cement their political legitimacy. Blanche commissioned the spectacular Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, creating a physical symbol of her family's divine right to rule that still stands today. These architectural projects weren't just expressions of faith. They were political statements cast in stone and stained glass. Religious women often served as educators for future rulers. Royal children were frequently sent to be raised in abbeys under the supervision of abbesses, who shaped their understanding of politics, religion, and governance. The powerful Empress Matilda entrusted her son, the future Henry II of England, to the care of Abbess Matilda of Anjou, who helped prepare him for kingship. Even in retirement, royal women wielded influence through religious institutions. Many widowed queens chose to enter abbeys, bringing their political connections, wealth, and experience with them. These retired queens continued to influence politics from behind abbey walls, using religious institutions as platforms for continued political engagement, while appearing to have humbly stepped away from worldly concerns. Number 6. Cultural patronage as political power. Ever considered how commissioning art could be a political act? Medieval noblewomen shaped public opinion and royal legacies by patronizing artists, writers, and musicians who created works glorifying their families and promoting their political viewpoints. Marie de Champagne, daughter of Eleanor of Aquitaine, sponsored the writer Chrétien de Troyes, whose courtly romances established ideals of chivalric behavior that influenced real-world politics for centuries. These weren't just entertaining stories. They were sophisticated propaganda tools, establishing cultural norms that served women's interests by promoting gentler, more respectful treatment of ladies at court. Queens commissioned illuminated manuscripts depicting themselves in positions of authority, crowned, enthroned, and actively participating in governance. Blanche of Castile was portrayed in manuscripts giving orders to builders, dispensing justice, and advising her son, the king. Visual representations that normalized female political participation. These images, viewed by the elite of medieval society, subtly reinforced the legitimacy of women's political roles. Women also commissioned historical chronicles that ensured their political contributions wouldn't be forgotten. Elizabeth of York, who helped end the Wars of the Roses by marrying Henry VII, supported historians who emphasized her crucial role in uniting the warring houses of Lancaster and York. These accounts, written under female patronage, preserved women's political achievements that might otherwise have been minimized or erased. The architecture patronized by women often served political purposes beyond religious devotion. When Eleanor of Castile commissioned Eleanor crosses marking each place her funeral procession stopped on its way to London, she created permanent monuments to her influence that still dot the English landscape today. These weren't just memorials. They were reminders of her political presence that continued long after her death. Number 5. Regents and stand-in rulers. Did you know that women frequently ruled kingdoms while their husbands were away at war or on crusade? These female regents weren't just keeping the throne warm. They were making crucial political decisions, leading armies, and sometimes proving more effective than the men they temporarily replaced. Blanche of Castile twice served as regent of France, first for her young son, Louis IX, and later when he departed on crusade. During her regencies, she crushed rebellions, negotiated peace treaties, and strengthened royal authority so effectively that the kingdom was more stable when she stepped down than when she took control. Her political skill was so respected that her son consulted her on important matters, even after reaching adulthood and taking power himself. Women like Margaret of Austria governed extensive territories, not just temporarily, but for decades. As regent of the Netherlands from 1507 to 1515 and again from 1519 to 1530, Margaret negotiated the Ladies' Peace of Cambrai with Louise of Savoy, regent of France, a remarkable treaty negotiated entirely by women that ended a war between their male relatives. These weren't isolated incidents, but examples of women repeatedly demonstrating political and diplomatic capabilities. Female regents often faced unique challenges. During her regency for her son James V of Scotland, Margaret Tudor had to navigate complex loyalties as both a Scottish queen and an English princess during tensions between the two kingdoms. These women developed sophisticated strategies for maintaining authority in societies reluctant to accept female leadership, often emphasizing their roles as mothers protecting their sons' inheritances rather than rulers in their own right. Some regencies became so prolonged they were effectively full reigns. Catherine de' Medici served as regent for her young sons in France, dominating French politics for nearly 30 years during one of the most turbulent periods in the country's history. While her methods were sometimes controversial, her political longevity in a male-dominated world demonstrated remarkable adaptive skills and strategic thinking. Number 4. Strategic widowhood and property management. Have you ever thought about why some medieval women might have found more freedom in widowhood than in marriage? When husbands died, medieval noble women often gained control of vast estates and political powers that allowed them to emerge as independent political actors. Widowed countesses and duchesses administered territories, collected taxes, negotiated with tenants, and managed complex properties, developing administrative skills identical to those of male rulers. The Countess of Richmond, Margaret Beaufort, managed extensive properties following her husband's deaths, using the wealth and influence from these holdings to advance her son's claim to the English throne. Her son eventually became King Henry VII, founding the Tudor dynasty through his mother's political maneuvering. Some strategic widows deliberately chose not to remarry to maintain their independence. Agnes of France, daughter of Louis VII, refused multiple marriage proposals after her husband's death, preferring to rule Byzantine territories independently rather than surrender her autonomy to a new husband. These deliberate choices reveal women consciously selecting political power over the security of remarriage. Property disputes gave widows reasons to develop sophisticated legal knowledge. The Paston Letters reveal Margaret Paston defending her family's properties in 15th century England through legal strategies, armed defense, and political networking. These weren't gentle widows passively mourning, they were property managers, employing complex strategies to protect their interests against powerful opponents. Widowed queens who served as regents for their sons often continued exercising significant influence even after those sons reached adulthood. Catherine de' Medici, Blanche of Castile, and Isabella of Castile all maintained powerful political roles long after their official regencies ended, using the economic resources from their widows' portions to maintain independent power bases within the kingdom. Number 3. Political education of royal children. Did you realize that queens shaped future kings and kingdoms through their role as primary educators of royal children? Medieval mothers were responsible for their children's earliest education, giving queens extraordinary influence over the values, skills, and knowledge of future rulers. Queens like Eleanor of Provence personally selected tutors and educational texts for royal children, effectively controlling the intellectual environment that would shape the next generation of rulers. By choosing who would influence their children's developing minds, These women exercised political power that extended far beyond their own lifetimes, affecting kingdom policies decades after their own deaths. Royal mothers often commissioned specialized instructional texts for their children. Christine de Pizan wrote the Book of the Body Politic at the request of Queen Isabeau of Bavaria to guide the education of the future Charles VII of France. These educational materials reflected the political values these women wanted to instill in the next generation of leaders, allowing them to transmit their political philosophies to their children. Some queens took extraordinary measures to ensure their sons received educations that would prepare them for effective rule. Duda of Septimania wrote an entire manual of advice for her son William when political circumstances separated them, covering everything from religious devotion to practical governance. Her Handbook for William represents one of the earliest surviving texts, authored by a medieval woman, and reveals sophisticated political thinking beneath its maternal advice. The multilingual abilities of many medieval queens meant they often personally introduced their children to international literature, diplomatic correspondence, and cultural practices from their homelands. Catherine of Aragon ensured her daughter Mary Tudor received a Renaissance humanist education that prepared her for potential rulership, including diplomatic languages and political philosophy, training that became crucial when Mary eventually became England's first acknowledged queen regnant. Number 2. Women as network builders and information brokers. Ever wondered how information traveled in an age before telecommunications? Medieval noblewomen created and maintained vast networks of family connections, friendships, and alliances that served as medieval information highways, giving them access to crucial political intelligence others lacked. Ladies-in-waiting weren't just fashion accessories. They were political agents connecting courts across Europe. When foreign princesses married into new kingdoms, they brought entourages of noblewomen who maintained connections to their home countries, creating informal diplomatic channels that operated alongside official ones. These women exchanged letters, gifts, and visits that kept information flowing between courts, even when official relations were strained. Family correspondence networks gave politically active women intelligence advantages. Margaret of Austria maintained regular correspondence with her niece, Catherine of Aragon, in England, her nephew, Charles V, in Spain, and numerous other relatives across Europe, giving her unparalleled access to information from multiple courts simultaneously. These letter networks functioned as private intelligence services, allowing women to gather and share political information across borders. Women's religious networks created additional information channels outside male oversight. Female monastics exchanged letters with secular noblewomen, creating information networks that crossed between religious and political spheres. The mystic Hildegard of Bingen corresponded with Eleanor of Aquitaine, connecting the isolated religious world with the heart of royal politics through letters that discussed both spiritual and worldly matters. Medieval markets and fairs, often managed by noblewomen on their estates, became information exchanges where news and rumors were traded alongside goods. Women like Mahaut of Artois, who carefully managed the commercial activity on her lands, gained economic intelligence and political information through these mercantile connections, allowing them to make more informed political and economic decisions. Number 1. Rebellion leaders and political strategists. Would you believe that medieval women sometimes led armed rebellions and political resistance movements? When conventional power was denied them, some medieval women took extraordinary measures to achieve their political goals, including taking up arms. Matilda of Tuscany personally led troops against Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV in the 11th century investiture controversy, defending Pope Gregory VII's position against imperial control of church appointments. Riding into battle in armor, she commanded soldiers in a conflict that shaped the relationship between church and state throughout medieval Europe. Her military leadership wasn't an anomaly, but part of a deliberate political strategy to defend papal independence. Some women led rebellions to protect their children's inheritance rights. Isabella of France nicknamed the She-Wolf of France, invaded England with a small force in 1326 to depose her husband Edward II, who she claimed was being manipulated by court favorites threatening her son's future. Her successful military action led to her husband's deposition and her son's early coronation as Edward III, with Isabella serving as regent. This wasn't just a family dispute, but a sophisticated political coup. Women sometimes organized resistance without personally bearing arms. During the anarchy in 12th century England, Empress Matilda claimed the throne against her cousin Stephen of Blois, orchestrating military campaigns, diplomatic initiatives, and propaganda efforts in a civil war that lasted over a decade. Though she never secured the crown for herself, her persistent efforts eventually resulted in the recognition of her son as Stephen's heir, fundamentally achieving her dynastic goals. The unique advantages women possessed as political actors sometimes helped them succeed where men had failed. Joan of Arc leveraged her gender and youth to create a powerful political narrative that united French forces during the 100 Years' War. By positioning herself as a divinely inspired peasant girl rather than a traditional military leader, she circumvented established power structures and rallied support for the French crown in ways male commanders couldn't replicate. Did history books tell you the whole story about medieval women's political power, or have centuries of focus on male-dominated institutions hidden half the picture? How might our understanding of politics today change if we fully recognized the sophisticated strategies medieval women developed to exercise power in a world that officially denied them authority?